Welcome, Masters of Leather. Today we're talking about beveling, and I think it's good to go over the basic idea of beveling first before we get into some actual show and tell. Everybody wants to know, how deep do you bevel? The general rule has always been you bevel as deep as your cut. You never want to go below that cut. However, on thin leathers, I think people still don't bevel deep enough, lacking dimension and depth within their tooling, and it's just a series of beveled lines. The other general rule of thumb is that you hold your beveler straight up and down. This is true, however, depending on how much of the face you want to have making contact, you need to learn to alter tipping your bevelers either away from your body to increase the amount of face that makes contact, or tip it towards you to decrease it. Now, some people have gone to a steep beveler to get a very steep bevel without a lot of face print around the outside of their work. We call these halos. But for the standard typical Barry King beveler, and that's what I'm using here, some Barry King bevelers that are checkered, to decrease that amount of face, you want to practice tooling with your tool tip back towards you and see what kind of effects you can get that way. The other debate we were having the other day was smooth over checkered. I think checkered allows the novice a cleaner finished product because I think the checkering helps hide some of the tool tracks as over smooth does. Smooth I think takes a little bit more time to master. So that being said, let's practice some beveling. We're going to start with the outline bevel first, and we're going to want to take, in the first hit we want to go as deep as our cut. So that's about at least a third of the way into the leather, if not a little bit more, depending on how heavy you've cut. Now the trick with beveling is you want to match the amount of maul speed to the amount of drag that you have on your tool to help get as clean as impressions as possible. And the rule of thumb has always been that if you're leaving tracks, you slow down the tool drag and increase the maul speed, and vice versa. But the idea is to just come up with that nice happy medium. And so as we work this along here, and when we're on the outside, we don't really want to worry about going lighter or not lighter. We want to make this bevel the same depth all the way along. We really want to get it picked up and really get some dimension going in there where you can see your pattern start to really come off the leather. Now we're going to move up to the second line in our junction, and so what we want to do is, depending on whether you're right hand or left hand, will depend on the starting point. Now, me being right hand, I'm going to start at the top of the fade, and I'm going to start lightly, and as I drag down here, once I get to where they start to overlap, I'm going to start going much, much deeper, and then by the time I'm at the end of the leaf, I'm going to be at the same depth I was here, as deep as my cut. Now, if you're left-handed, or if you prefer, you may start at this side and come up and fade up into the vine here. Now remember, when we fade, we have to see enough definition from this leaf to the main stem to make it look like this stem is higher than this leaf here. So let's do this. So we're going to start out with just enough to get us some definition going. And notice by the sound of the maul that it's fairly light through here. Now I want to start light because I can always go back and increase this. Now this is also a point where you're going to want to learn to tip that beveler back and decrease the amount of face impression that we get as we go along here. Now as we come down here, notice we're getting a heavier strike. And now we're at the heaviest amount of beveling as possible. Now we can work back up, going heavy to about medium. And now we can start to lighten up as as we come up here to the top and tip it back. And then at the top, I mean, you can even draw with your beveler just to finish it off just a little bit. As you can see though, we have nice definition, and we've started to pull this main stem work up off of this leaf. So this leaf now looks like it's going to peel off below, and this stem will continue on. We'll do the same with this line here, that is the actual main stem, and make every one of these leaves as a series of steps, one a little bit lower than the other. So let's start here. Next line we'll do is this line here, and this is going to be a fairly shallow bevel for the most part. We just want to get enough definition again to bring this main stem higher than this sticker, and this again is a place where you're going to want to practice tipping that tool back towards you to minimize the amount of face that it pushes onto that lower section there. Remember, you can always work this a little bit at a time. You don't have to get one depth in one fell pass. You can always work it 2 or 3 passes until you're satisfied. So as you can see there, we've got some definition going. Now if you wanted more definition, you could come in here and hit it harder. And really pick up the depth. But now what we have to do is we have to fade this portion of the line out further so that it's not such a hard start and stop point. So to do that, we're going to start in the line, and we're going to start light, and we're going to continue the line past the cut, and we're going to actually just drag with our tool just a little bit, pretty much just drawing on the leather, if you will. And then as we go back down, smooth it out by tapping it. And as you can see, we faded out that cut pretty darn well right there. So now we're going to move on to beveling this interior line here. That is the main stem of our flower. And again, you can either start at the base of the flower, or we can work at the bottom and work up. I'm going to start with the light fade. I'm going to come in light. Now as soon as this line starts to come above the next lower section of the stem work, we have to start getting deeper to show that depth definition as we show the step down. So we're real light here at the beginning, but now we're going to start to get deeper and deeper right here, and we're going to go almost to medium because we really need this stem to stick up above the rest of them. And I think this is one of the common mistakes people make. They go light all through here, and really we've got to get it a lot heavier so that it stands above the rest of the pattern. And then if you still need to adjust other lines, you know, you can go back and deepen them up a little bit too to help the look all come together so that everything's nice and uniform. By making this main stem stick up above the rest of these stickers and leaves, it helps your eye continue through with the flow. So it's very important that we get prominent parts of our patterns to be higher than the others by beveling correctly. Using some of these tips and working at it will help you achieve a better beveling and a better finished product when you're done. And as you can see here, never be afraid to go back and just get a little bit deeper and deeper, especially if you have nice deep heavy leather where you really can, you know, get in there and use a beveler, get some depth to it. I mean, as you can see there, deepening up some lines sometimes helps a lot. Now the other thing you're going to notice, one last tip we'll touch on, is that a beveler has a tendency to push lines up. And so to minimize this, we want to tilt our tool there again. You know, if you start to see that you're getting ridges on top, you might need to stand your beveler up a little bit more towards you and let it stop pushing so hard against your pattern. Get that face away from the surrounding leather and let it work this way. And when you come to intersections, you really want to learn to tip that beveler back, get that casting shadow away from whatever's below it. So definitely play with the angle. Now when it comes to these little turnbacks, you don't want to tool all the way into the intersection. You want to actually stop a little bit short of right here so that you don't cast tool marks onto the opposing sticker. So you just want to come around really about 7/8 of the way and then finish off this small little area here with your backgrounder or your bar grounder, or get a steeper beveler to help finish that off. But you really don't want to go until you touch the other stem. You want to stop short a little bit and let your other tools do the work for you, and that will clean up your beveling quite a bit. So I hope these tips help. I hope it helps improve your beveling quite a bit, and if we can answer questions, we will do so. But for now, we're signing off. Happy tooling.